The crystal champagne flute shattered in my grip, sending shards across the marble floor of our mansion's dining room. My husband Rohan didn't even look up from his newspaper. 10 years of marriage, and he barely noticed when I bled. I'm Jordan, and this is how I finally stopped being the perfect wife. You've cut yourself, he said flatly, still focused on the financial section. Call Maria to clean that up. I wrapped my hand in a napkin, watching red bloom across the white fabric. I can clean up my own messes. That's not what we pay the help for. He turned a page, the rustle of paper filling our cavernous dining room. Don't forget the charity gala tonight. Wear the blue Versace. I nodded, though he wasn't looking. Another night of fake smiles and hollow small talk. My prison was gilded, but it was still a prison. Later that day, I visited my family's renovated brownstone, the one my marriage had paid for. My sister Delaney lounged on a designer couch, scrolling through her phone. Jordan, Mom just bought me tickets to Paris. She bounced up to hug me, reeking of expensive perfume. First class, can you believe it? Wonderful, I managed, remembering when she used to shop at thrift stores, before I'd made the deal that saved them all. Mom swept in, elegant as always. Darling, you look tired. Is Rohan working you too hard? Her laugh tinkled like ice cubes in crystal. Though I suppose we can't complain, can we? I forced a smile, excusing myself to use the bathroom. On the marble counter lay a local newspaper, open to the community section. A photo caught my eye. A boy's face in a story about the children's orchestra at St. Michael's Orphanage. My hands trembled as I read the caption. Zeke, age 10, performing his first solo. 10 years. 10 years since they'd made me give up my baby, rushing me from the hospital to the altar before I'd even healed. 10 years of wondering if he was alive, if he was happy, if he remembered the lullabies I'd sung to him in those precious few hours we'd had. The face in the photo had my eyes. I tore out the article, folding it carefully into my wallet. In the mirror, I watched my perfect mask crack just slightly. My son was alive, and he was close. All these years, my family had thrived on my sacrifice, while my child grew up without a mother. The time for being the perfect, dutiful daughter was over. They would all learn what it meant to lose everything they loved, starting now. You want me to what? Valeria nearly spilled her coffee across the cafe table. My oldest friend hadn't changed since high school. Still direct, still loyal, still working as a social worker, with access to exactly the kind of information I needed. I need you to help me look into St. Michael's Orphanage, I repeated, sliding the newspaper clipping across to her. Specifically about this boy. She studied the photo, then my face. Jordan, is this about... Yes. I cut her off, glancing around the quiet cafe. He'd be exactly that age now. This is dangerous territory. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. If your family finds out, they're the reason I'm doing this. My coffee sat untouched, growing cold. Did you know Delaney just got first-class tickets to Paris, while he's in an orphanage? Valeria reached across and squeezed my hand. I'll see what I can find out, but you need to be careful. That afternoon, I cornered Delaney in her favorite boutique. She was holding up a designer dress when I approached. Oh, this would look amazing on you, she chirped, then saw my expression. What's wrong? Tell me about the day I gave birth, I said quietly. Other shoppers browsed nearby. Tell me why I never even got to hold him. The dress slipped from her fingers. Jordan, we agreed never to... No, you all agreed. I was drugged and desperate. My voice stayed low but sharp. Mum said he died. Was that a lie too? Please, she whispered, eyes darting around. Mum will kill me if... My phone buzzed. A text from Valeria. Found something. Monthly newsletter from St. Michael's. Check your email now. Never mind, I told Delaney, watching her shoulders sag with relief. Enjoy Paris. In my car, I pulled up the email. There he was again, my son, in the orphanage's newsletter. Zeke continues to impress with his musical talents, the caption read. His recent piano recital moved many to tears. I touched the screen, tracing his face. I used to play piano too, before marriage consumed my life, before my family sold my happiness for financial security. My phone buzzed again. Rohan, dinner with investors tonight. Wear red. I typed back, not feeling well. Send apologies. Then I pulled up St. Michael's website. They were hosting a charity drive next week. The perfect cover for a visit. Time to meet my son. St. Michael's orphanage smelled of lemon cleaner and chalk dust. I clutched my designer handbag, filled with books I'd brought as donations, while Ms. Natasha led me through the corridors. We're so grateful for your interest in our music program, she said, gesturing to a wall of children's artwork. Most donors only care about basic necessities. Piano music drifted from somewhere ahead, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. My heart stopped. I used to play that piece. That would be Zeke, Ms. Natasha smiled. He's quite gifted. We entered the music room. A small boy sat at an old upright piano, dark hair falling over his eyes as his fingers danced across the keys. My eyes, my hair, my music. The piece ended, and he turned around. Zeke, this is Mrs. Roberts. She's interested in supporting our music program. He stood, polite but reserved. Thank you for coming. Would you like to hear another piece? I'd love to. My voice barely worked. Do you know Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata? His face lit up. That's my favorite. Most people only want to hear pop songs. It was my favorite too at your age. I sat beside him on the bench, careful to maintain distance despite every cell in my body screaming to hold him. Show me? As he played, Ms. Natasha watched us with an unreadable expression. The music swelled, and I noticed a small scar on his left wrist, identical to one I'd gotten falling off my bike as a child. Beautiful, I whispered when he finished. You have a real gift. Did you ever perform? He asked, eyes bright with curiosity. A long time ago, life took a different turn. Ms. Natasha cleared her throat. Zeke, it's time for your study group. He nodded, then hesitated. Will you come back? Maybe we could play a duet? I'd like that very much. I watched him leave, my heart breaking all over again. Interesting, Ms. Natasha said once we were alone. He never connects with visitors like that, usually stays quiet. Music brings people together, I managed. She picked up a small wooden box from the piano. This is his most prized possession, found with him as a baby. She opened it, revealing a tiny silver music note pendant, the pendant I'd made during my pregnancy, planning to give it to my child. Remarkable craftsmanship, she said carefully, studying my face. One might say, unique. Our eyes met. She knew. I should go, I said quickly, gathering my bag. Thank you for the tour. Mrs. Roberts, she called as I reached the door. Some things have a way of coming full circle. Come back next week, same time. I nodded, unable to speak, and hurried out into the rain. Got them, Valeria whispered, sliding a manila envelope across her desk. Adoption records. Had to call in 3 favors, so this better be worth it. My hand shook as I opened it. There it was, my son's birth certificate. My name had been redacted, but the date, time, and hospital matched. A note mentioned a silver music note pendant among his possessions. There's more, Valeria said. Your mother's signature. She arranged the adoption while you were still unconscious. The paper crumpled in my grip. She told me he died. Jordan, Valeria started, but her office phone rang. Sorry, I have to take this. I slipped out, driving straight to Delaney's apartment. She opened the door in yoga clothes, phone to her ear. Got to go, Mom, she said quickly. Jordan's here. I held up the birth certificate. Want to explain this? All color drained from her face. Where did you... Doesn't matter. Start talking. She sank onto her couch. Mom said it was for the best. You were so young, and Rohan's family wouldn't accept a baby that wasn't his. The money. We were about to lose everything. So you sold my child. Mom handled everything. I just didn't stop her. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She said he'd go to a good family. He went to an orphanage. I threw the papers at her. My son grew up without parents because you all wanted designer clothes and first-class tickets. Jordan. Rohan's voice froze us both. He stood in the doorway, briefcase in hand. What's this about a son? Delaney jumped up. Rohan, I thought you had meetings. Cancelled. His cold eyes fixed on me. I came to surprise my wife for lunch, but her car was here instead of at her usual charity meeting. Now, what's this about a baby? Nothing, I said quickly. Just discussing a charity case. Really? He picked up the scattered papers. Because these look like adoption records. From 10 years ago. His voice turned to ice. Right before our wedding. Rohan, I can explain. Home. Now. He grabbed my arm. We have much to discuss. Let go of me. Now, Jordan. His fingers dug into my skin. Before I decide to make some calls about your little investigation. I looked at Delaney, but she turned away, hugging herself. Fine. I yanked free. Let's talk. As we left, my phone buzzed. A text from Ms. Natasha. Zeke keeps asking when you'll return for that duet. Also found something you should see. Come tomorrow. I deleted the message before Rohan could see it. The game was changing. I needed a new plan. A child. Rohan paced our living room. You brought a bastard into our marriage. I didn't bring anything, I snapped. You married me knowing I was pregnant. You just didn't care as long as the baby disappeared. Your mother assured me. My mother? I laughed bitterly. Of course she did. Did she also tell you how much money she needed to make it all go away? His phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. Juliana, he answered. Yes, I just found out. No, she's right here. Of course. He handed me the phone. Your mother wants to talk. Darling, her voice dripped honey. We need to discuss this. Come to dinner tonight. No, this isn't a request. Steele replaced the honey. 7 o'clock. Don't make me remind you what's at stake. The line went dead. You're going, Rohan said. You can't control me anymore. No. He pulled out his tablet. Should I call the board of St. Michael's? I'm sure they'd be interested to know about a wealthy donor stalking one of their children. My blood ran cold. You wouldn't. Try me. He straightened his tie. 7 o'clock, Jordan. Wear something appropriate. That evening, my mother's house felt like a trap. She'd prepared my favorite meal. A detail that made it worse. Sit, she commanded. We need to discuss your recent activities. Like how you faked my son's death? I saved this family. She cut her meat precisely, including you. Do you think Rohan would have married you with a baby? Do you think we could have survived without that marriage? He's my son. He was a mistake that I fixed. She dabbed her lips. Now you're going to fix this mess. Stop visiting the orphanage. Stop investigating. Focus on your marriage. Or what? Or Rohan will ensure that boy never gets adopted, ever. She smiled thinly. Money talks, darling, especially in charitable organizations. My fork clattered to the plate. You're monsters, all of you. We're survivors. She reached for her wine. Speaking of which, how is dear Zeke's music coming along? Still playing Beethoven? My head snapped up. She knew. She'd been watching him too. Don't look so surprised. She sipped her wine. I keep tabs on all my investments. My phone buzzed. Ms. Natasha. Emergency, come now. Zeke found something in his music box. A note. Your name. I stood up, knocking over my chair. Leaving so soon? Mother asked. Watch me, I said, and ran for the door. Behind me, I heard her call Rohan. The race was on. Rain pounded against the windshield as I sped to St. Michael's. Ms. Natasha waited at the entrance, clutching Zeke's wooden music box. He found this hidden in the lining, she said, pulling out a weathered note. Your full name, the hospital, the date, everything. My hands trembled as I read my own desperate words, written 10 years ago. To my baby, I'm sorry, I love you. Your mother, Jordan Elliott. Does he know? He's confused, scared. She led me inside. He's in the music room. Zeke sat at the piano, playing my lullaby, the one I'd hummed to him in those precious few hours we'd had. He stopped when he saw me. "You're her, aren't you?" His voice was small. "The name in the note." "Yes." No point lying anymore. "Why didn't you want me?" The question hit like a physical blow. "I wanted you more than anything. They took you from me." "Who?" "Your grandmother. My husband. People who cared more about money than—" The door burst open. Rohan stormed in, followed by my mother. "Step away from the boy," Rohan ordered. "No." I moved closer to Zeke. "I'm done following orders." "Mrs. Roberts," Ms. Natasha stepped forward. "This is a private facility. I'll have to ask you and your companions to leave." "That won't be necessary," my mother smiled. "We're simply here to collect my confused daughter and to discuss a substantial donation to your music program." "You can't buy everyone," I said. "Watch me." She pulled out her phone. "One call to the board." "Already made it," Ms. Natasha interrupted. "They're very interested in how a baby with a living mother ended up here under suspicious circumstances." Mother's smile faltered. "You have no proof." I held up the note. "Actually, we do. Plus adoption papers, birth records, and a witness willing to testify about medical fraud." "Valeria," Rohan realized, "your social worker friend." "Who's currently meeting with a lawyer," I added. "It's over." "Nothing's over." Rohan straightened his tie. "We're moving to Europe. Tonight. The jet's waiting." "No." I looked at Zeke, who watched us with wide eyes. "I'm staying with my son." "Then you'll have nothing," Mother spat. "No money, no status, no— I'll have everything I need." I sat beside Zeke at the piano. "Want to play that duet now?" He nodded, a small smile breaking through his fear. As our fingers touched the keys, playing the melody we both somehow knew, Rohan and my mother's threats faded away. But this wasn't the end. Tomorrow would bring lawyers, custody battles, and more threats. Tonight, though, we had music. And finally, we had truth. The annual charity gala at our mansion became the perfect battleground. Every influential family in town gathered, sipping champagne and trading gossip. My mother worked the room like always, while Rohan entertained investors. "Ready?" Valeria whispered, adjusting my microphone. We'd planted speakers throughout the house. "More than ready." I grabbed a champagne flute and clinked it for attention. "Thank you all for coming tonight." The room hushed. My mother's eyes narrowed. "I'd like to make an announcement," I continued, "about family, about truth." "Jordan," Rohan warned, starting toward me. 10 years ago, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "My family told everyone he died. Instead, they forced me into marriage and sent my son to an orphanage." "She's unwell," my mother called out, rushing forward. "Too much wine, darling. I have proof." I nodded to Valeria, who started the slideshow. Birth certificates, adoption papers, and photos filled the wall. My mother arranged it all. For money, for status. The crowd murmured. Someone dropped a glass. "And my husband?" I turned to Rohan. "He knew. He paid for it all." "These are lies," Rohan snarled, but his investor friends were already backing away. "The truth is in those documents," I continued, "and in this." I pulled out my phone, playing a recording of last night's dinner conversation with my mother. Her voice filled the room. "I saved this family. He was a mistake that I fixed." "Turn that off," she screamed, lunging for me. Delaney caught her arm. "Stop, Mom, it's over." "You're part of this too," Mother hissed. "Not anymore." Delaney faced the crowd. "Everything she's saying is true. I helped cover it up. I'm sorry, Jordan. I'm so sorry." The room erupted in chaos. Phones came out, recording everything. Rohan's investors huddled in corners, whispering. My mother's social circle scattered like startled birds. "You've ruined everything," Rohan growled, grabbing my arm. "No," a small voice cut through the chaos. "Let her go." Everyone turned. Zeke stood in the doorway with Ms. Natasha. Let my mother go. Rohan's hand dropped. The room fell silent. Mom? Zeke walked toward me, confident despite the staring crowd. I want to go home now. I took his hand, tears streaming down my face. Yes, let's go home. This isn't over, my mother called as we walked out. You'll have nothing. Wrong. I turned back one last time. I have everything. Behind us, cameras flashed and voices buzzed. Tomorrow, this would be everywhere. Reputations would crumble. Empires might fall. But walking out with my son's hand in mine, I finally felt rich. The morning sun streamed through my new apartment's windows as Zeke practiced piano. His music filled every corner, making the modest space feel like a palace. My phone buzzed, another news alert about Rohan's company's plummeting stocks. After the scandal broke, his investors had fled. The last I'd heard, he'd retreated to Europe alone. Mum? Zeke paused his playing. Someone's at the door. I opened it to find Delaney, holding a cardboard box. Found these in Mum's attic, she said quietly. Your old piano competition trophies. And some baby pictures of you. Thought Zeke might want to see them. Come in, I said. He's practicing for his recital. The one at Carnegie Hall? She smiled. I got tickets. You're coming? Front row. She set down the box. Mom's in rehab, by the way. The scandal. It broke her, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Zeke appeared beside me. Is that Aunt Delaney? Yes, I said. She brought some pictures of when I was your age. He pulled out a trophy. You won first place? Just like I did last week. She was amazing, Delaney said. Still is. My phone buzzed again. Ms. Natasha. Board approved your music education program. When can you start teaching? Good news? Delaney asked. The best kind. I showed Zeke the message. Want to help me teach other kids to play? His face lit up. Can I pick the songs? Of course. Speaking of songs, Delaney reached into the box. Remember this? She pulled out sheet music, the lullaby I'd written while pregnant. Play it with me, Zeke asked, already heading to the piano. We sat together on the bench, my sister watching from the couch. Our fingers found the keys, and the melody rose, no longer a song of loss, but of reunion. I've been working on a second part, Zeke said, pulling out his own composition. See? It answers the first part. He played his addition, a hopeful, soaring response to my melancholic theme. Together, they made something entirely new. Perfect, I whispered. Mom? He kept playing softly. Are we going to be okay? I looked around, at my sister wiping tears, at the sunlit apartment filled with music, at my son's fingers dancing across the keys just like mine used to. We already are, I said. The melody continued, his part and mine intertwining, creating harmony from discord. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, we had everything money couldn't buy. We had truth, we had music, we had love, and that was worth all the mansions in the world.